hey, can we come back to was that on Miami when LeBron James and Dwayne Wade?
Yes.
They had who did they have with them? They had a compliment.
Well, they had Chris Bosh and they had Ray
Bosh.
Allen. And, what's interesting is like, because of how Dwayne Wade and LeBron James play, they both drive to the basket. Chris Bosh was a great post player before. He couldn't really still be that post player.
Okay.
He had to then move to the perimeter because
change the game a little bit.
Right. You had to change the game a little bit because they couldn't really play through him as much because LeBron and Wade are guys that get to the front of the rim first, shoot second, maybe third. Right. Does that make sense? So that's why Ray Allen's a great fit for them because he's on the perimeter. Those guys are driving in and kicking out to him. He's going to have a ton of great opportunities. It all sort of fits when you look at it. But their components, those two guys, because they both want to get to the front of the rim, it's as unusual as an NBA champion as you've really seen since the 80s, really, where they did not complement one another.
Was there any development within their season that took what wasn't a natural complement, and by the end of the season, throughout the playoff run and into the championship, that they became more of a complement for one another? Well, can you recall?
Some of it for me, and again, I study this stuff, some of it for me is that those two guys are so good. They're just so dynamic that they are the anomaly. So I often don't say we should say the anomalies. The anomalies, that's, it's 90 degrees in December. That's an anomaly. Let's study what happens regularly. And so when I look at them, I thought, number one, LeBron James at the time the best player in the world. So complimenting him and putting someone beside him is a lot easier. People would say Dwayne Wade kind of took a step to the side. I don't see it that way. I didn't see him stepping to the side. I thought they really tried to play well off of each other, but they had to play an up-tempo style to fit both of their abilities to play.
Okay.
If you could have really slowed it down, it might have given them trouble. And remember, they almost lost to the Spurs, if not for a Ray Allen three-pointer to send it into Game 7. So their margin of error was really, really small because of that, relying on them getting to the free throw line and them getting to the front of the rim. The Spurs did a great job in that series of keeping them out of both of those areas. So when I really look at it, I just felt like those two guys, again, they're an anomaly, and they were so good that it just sort of worked. Wade at the time, one of the best players in the world, and LeBron James at the time, one of the best players in the world.
When you're good, and I think you hit the nail on the head, whenever you find you put folks together, especially that good, development is necessary, and you have to find it somewhere, somehow. And I think you dug into the point that they made sure they were playing up-tempo basketball. And they were also developing strong relationships both on and off the court that led to some selfless basketball. And that's what the greats, and I believe this is the point we're trying to get across, that's what the greats do, is they develop what others might not see or what might not be there today. They're going to find a way. They're going to make progress.
And both of them were terrific passers. So that helped that they could both pass the ball.
And so one of them probably had to learn. I'm sorry.
I know that seems really simple.
Yeah.
But both of them being able to pass the ball and create for other people and create for each other, huge, huge, huge benefit, because both those guys were double guys in with assisting at some point in their careers. That's really rare to have both guys like that.
It's nuts. And then you have the challenge then of, are you passing too much, or which guys got to stop passing? I would be real interested in finding out different little development areas of development that took place during that season. Very little that wouldn't that wouldn't reach the eye unless you were digging deep into it. It was I would imagine like a Chris Bosh had certain games or certain schemes that he came alive in, and then like a Dwayne Wade and a LeBron James, one of them had to back off in their assists. And if somebody happened to take over in a game, well, obviously you're going to feed the heck out of them. But just what the recipe become? The natural recipe. It's interesting.
Yeah, Chris Bosh, the one that had to change his game the most. But they had basically loaded that team up with a perimeter shooting, perimeter scorers that allowed LeBron James and Dwayne Wade to kind of go and be who they are.
Okay. And, going back to the other teams you mentioned, the 1-2 punches. But I heard, you're talking championship team, and there's a whole lot of other teams in the league, whole lot of other players in the league, but you're talking about the championship team.
Right.
And, you describe the number one player as being both offensively and defensively bought in, committed to excellence. I look at that as selfless.
Yeah.
And then you talked about a 1-2 punch, and then role players, the 3, 4, 5, and off the bench, again, deeper than self. And so a championship team, a championship team or an individual that gets development in the way it's supposed to be captured, it plays a selfless game of life.
Yeah. I mean, it's again, when you look at the very best, again, I felt like there was a thread that wove through every one of those teams. It was good to be able to do the research, good to be able to see how those teams all win. It's also good to know when you're watching these games, like who really has a chance to win it all. And I would say for a team like the Boston Celtics, one of the hardest things right now is that Tatum and Jaylen Brown don't always complement each other.
But when they do,
like the last two games, the last two games we're filming this, the Celtics have just won the other night. They've won 2 games in a row. It's 3-2. Going to Miami. But a telltale sign for me is when Jaylen Brown drives in and kicks out to Tatum, or Tatum drives in and kicks out to Jaylen Brown. I think when you see that happen, they're really, really tough to play against. But they are built more like that Miami Heat team with Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. But those two guys at this point, I think they'll get there, have not proven to be the facilitators for one another that those two guys were. And it doesn't mean they can't get there, but that's the challenge with them when you watch them play, is that they don't fully complement each other. And I think that's the thing I want to see them continue to grow on.
Do you think they're learning that? Do you think they understand that and are working?
Well, I think it's tougher than people think, because to be one of the best players in the world, you have to have a big ego, and you have to think that you can at times take over the game by yourself, and you have to at times. That's why I push back a little bit on selfless, because I think it's a weighted opportunity where those guys have to sometimes be selfish. And you have to take 3-4 shots in a row. But I don't know another word for selfless, so I want to leave that there, right?
Yeah.
Right, because there is a component to being unselfish. I think it's more about being secure. I believe that top chef, when he's secure enough, he reaches out and helps the others.
Yeah.
When he's not secure enough, he might not reach out and help the others. And you have these two guys who are two of the best players in the world, two of the most creative players in the world, two of the most creative scorers in the world. Over time, they're going to learn when to assert their dominance and when to sit back. But their threat being on the floor, and their threat with the ball, and their threat standing on the floor is greater than what any of them can do with the ball in their hands, because the defense has to respect and wait towards them as they continue to gain more security in that. And security is hard. Security is knowing that, like, I'm going to get the ball when the guy helps me too, and I'm going to get an easy one. Like we're 3-on-1 and I got an easy basket. Security is knowing I'm going to have a chance to get that ball and get to the front of the rim so I can get an easy one and get myself going a little bit. So there's to say it's just as easy, this guy's got to be secure, this guy's insecure. There are moments where we all go in and out of those moments. And you watch that when you watch sport all the time.
I hear security and I hear selfless written all over it. You have I love going to Kobe Bryant, because he was attacked or praised so heavily from both sides, but not really any in between. And so after he passed away, it seemed like everybody wanted to come out and praise. But when he was in the game, it was different behind the scenes, within the media, if you will, and within the people in the game itself. It appeared. Kobe Bryant had to take the shot because he knew he was the one practicing the most. Folks on his team may not have liked him if they weren't all in to Laker basketball rising to the top, because Well, he wanted you to take on a challenge. He wanted you to be a part of taking on a challenge. At the same time, he understood the value and the necessity of having other people take on the challenge. But that can get misconstrued when someone's demanding excellence from folks that doesn't understand what it means to have your excellence demanded and why. Well, it's Laker basketball.
Yeah.
And so, to come together as a team and to play 1-2 basketball with your complements who, to the greats, they know the value, especially the multiple time. They know the value of the perimeter shooter. They know the value of the rebounder. They know it's as valuable as them. There is no them winning the championship without the value of the rebounder, the perimeter shooter, the defender. I mean, you got a lockdown defender that doesn't score many points, or the sixth man or even eighth man that comes in and runs 8 to 10 hard minutes. The value from someone at the highest level, and I'm not talking about in the NBA, but I'm talking about championship understanding, is as selfless as it gets, because then it's about Laker basketball. But the person that we're calling one, the person that we're calling two, well, they're going to lock down the number one offensive player of the other team. They're going to be the leading scorer. And so you have to be secure in knowing that you're the ones that need to get the buckets. While at the same time, knowing folks might not understand that outside of you.
Yeah.
That's
And
selfless, man.
Yeah. And I would also add that, like the offenses like the triangle are really weighted towards the best players getting the ball in certain spots. The beautiful thing about the triangle is everyone can find their role in it, but it doesn't work unless you have one or two really dominant guys.
Okay.
And that's what I think is beautiful about it, because like you're talking about, it makes everybody have value because of the spacing on the floor. But the one or two guys that it really needs, whether it's Shaq or Kobe or MJ, or they've really make the offensive game so weighted that you gotta put so much attention to them that these other guys can find really simple, easy spots on the floor and be successful. But I would say, from Shaq when he was in Orlando and maybe early days with the Lakers, to Kobe his early days with the Lakers, to MJ early days with the Bulls, LeBron early days with the Cavs, you can go through any of the greatest players of all time. They had to go through a phase where they thought they could do it themselves. That's where you kind of build your confidence to take the shots in the biggest moments and to be fearless to pursue something much greater than any of us right now can put on our shoulders. That's where you gain that bandwidth to go and do that. Then you recognize, if I have a little bit of help here, it'll help. Oh, if I have a little bit of help here, it'll help. But I do think you got to stretch it to learn it. You got to stretch to say, man, I scored 60 and we lost. And then you take all the heat from the media and you take all the heat from everybody else. And as a leader, you learn that gives you muscles to recognize that, I can stand in the fire and take the heat and still perform. That's like the part of the championship part where you're mentally, emotionally, where guys kind of get drained.
Yeah.
The champion will take those moments and get drained, but then re-energize from it, go in that offseason, get better and improve and recognize, man, I need a John Paxson on the side of me. I need a Ron Artest that can guard multiple positions. When you look at those championship teams, the star players, they did not lack for this learning. They all learned it over time. And when they become champions, they're in the midst of understanding it the best.
And what they were all doing was the same common word: developing.
Yeah.
They were a champion far before you and I knew it. They knew what we didn't know, and they understood development like a madman. And when you were looking at, and I'm not saying you, but I'm just speaking in general terms, when we were looking at 63 points and still lost, or this team, or they were probably seeing what was poked in the media before the media even came up with it. Within that game, what could I have done better? What do we need? What do we need to go to another level as a team? And within the 63, I remember Jordan scoring 63 against the Celtics in a playoff game. And that was his role at the time.
Yeah.
That was his role. A developing And I'm talking championship development. And I'm also talking leader. So not just the developer. I'm taking this beyond just development right now because it's necessary on a championship team for everyone to develop, not just the basketball players, but everyone around them to develop. But as a leader, you fully understand the necessity of everyone around you and your role. And others can call you a gunner. They can call you, at the end of the day, when the clock runs out, you're going to look back at someone's career and see if they were a 63-point gunner or were they a champion. And if you're looking at development and you understand what you and I understand, you're going to be able to go back and see just how much development was done from the rookie season to the end of their career. And there's a whole lot of it in a given season and every year thereafter.
I love it. We'll leave it right there. If you want to be a champion, you must keep developing. For Winning in the Margins, this is Jamion Christian and Jeff Brochu. Thank you for your time.
Awesome, man. Thank you,